Welcome to the Republic Brothers Podcast. We're cutting through the noise and defending the truth. I'm Mike, joined by my brother Matt again, and every week we break down the issues that matter most to conservatives and everyday Americans. Today we're diving into government shutdowns, the recent shootings, Charlie Kirk, and TP USA. Now, Matt, before we jump into the government shutdown, did you see what Pete Hegseth said today?
About fatties in the military?
Yes.
I did see that, and I got a little kick out of it. Completely agree. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I think, if you... It kind of is like that thing from the LA fires when a woman or whoever it was said that, if you need me to pull you out of a burning building, what's going on in the first place? So, yeah, I think you kind of need to be able to have a little bit of physical fitness if you want to be in the military. Otherwise, the rest of the world's not going to be that afraid of us.
Well, my ideal firefighter is a 6'4" jacked Polish guy, and I'd like the same for the military.
Yeah, exactly. So,
are you upset that this is essentially going to eliminate women from combat roles? If they return to the old standard that everyone had to meet, it's basically going to be just men that meet those requirements.
I mean, to me, it's not about equality, right? This is something that it's all based on merit. Like, if you're the biggest and the strongest, there are certain jobs that certain people should have, right? It doesn't mean that we're discriminating against anybody. It's just when you think of a military, you think of a big burly dude, and you think of, just a bunch of bad dudes walking around that are there to protect. If you're there to protect, you're big and you're strong and you're fast.
I would be okay if we just said no women in combat roles. I'm not a big fan of sending people's daughters off to fight in war. We have way more capable people. Let's let them do it. If women want to be technical support or mechanical support, I'm fine with that. I just don't want to see them in combat. When this new rule saying women could be in combat, they changed the standard to make it easier for them to pass. Most branches of the military happily went along with it. It was the Marines that did a test over the course of a year where you had combat troops, only men in one group, both genders in another, and only women in a third group. And over the course of a year, they tested them in training. And it's no surprise which group won. And it's no surprise which group finished last.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, moving on from that, we'll get into the government shutdowns. As we're sitting here recording, they are having their votes and stuff, and it is not looking good.
Well, it looks like we are getting a shutdown. The first bill, which was the Democrats' proposed bill, would have funded the Democrats' healthcare priorities and limited Trump's abilities to cut funding. They should have known no Republican was voting for that, and the Republicans, as the majority, were always going to shut that down. I am not overly surprised that Democrats rejected the Republican bill. The Republican bill was passed by the House. It added no new spending at all. I am not shocked that for political reasons, Democrats would vote no. How about you?
No, I mean, I'm not shocked either. I'm kind of on the fence about this one where I don't really blame either side, to be honest. I think they're both just as responsible. Nobody wants to bend a knee. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in. It's the same as the shutdowns that we've had before. It's never one side. It's always both. Nobody wants to budge. And that's why we're here.
That's fair. One side wants to cut spending. The other side wants to add more spending. We're always going to have a bit of a stalemate, and both sides are going to play politics to try to get what they can.
All right, so let's talk about the economic effects of this. What exactly does this mean when we say that the government is shutting down?
Well, the economy will continue on, but certain parts will be hit. For example, military personnel will not be paid. But overall, it won't impact many industries. The ones that get subsidies, agriculture could be affected. But overall, in our day-to-day life, you won't see massive changes. The interesting thing is when Musk was at Doge, they wanted to cut a lot of the workforce. Normally in a government shutdown, you have to furlough a significant number of employees of the federal government. in this shutdown, there is a real chance Trump just comes in and fires people, and he would be within his right.
So, again, back to why we are actually shutting down. Can you go a little bit more in detail in what it is exactly that they are disagreeing about?
From my understanding, the main disagreement is, one, on how long to fund the government, and two, what we should be funding. The Democrats made a big push to add in something like $1 trillion worth of funding, mostly for health care. That included health care for illegal immigrants. And they also wanted to limit Trump's ability to cut funding that was congressionally approved for a variety of different things, mostly foreign aid. I think Republicans in an ideal world would have cut a little more spending, but knowing that would never be approved by Democrats, they stuck with the same plan they had and just continuing to fund what was there. It's interesting that it was a 53-47 vote with two Democrats and one independent voting no with Republicans on the Democrat bill. And now we are getting word that the second vote did not pass. There were some notable crossovers. The least surprising to me is John Fetterman and Rand Paul.
So how long do you think this shutdown could last?
It's an interesting question. The House goes on recess next week, so if it's not solved this week and the Democrat bill has not been voted on in the House, the Republican bill has passed the House, so there's a good chance, I would imagine, both sides keep playing politics, and it could be a couple weeks.
Well, hopefully we can avoid all that and things get settled up sooner rather than later. But like I said before, to me, I put the blame on both sides. But all right, so segueing out of that, I think next we'll go ahead and get into the recent shootings. Let's start with the shooting in North Carolina. So tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, we may have a case of PTSD striking. Mass shooting in Southport, North Carolina. 3 left dead, 5 injured in this North Carolina shooting. Officials saying it was highly premeditated and a targeted attack at this bar. The shooting happened at around 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday. The suspect, 40-year-old Nigel Max Edge, was on a boat when he opened fire on the restaurant. Most of the victims were not locals. They were tourists on vacation, which makes me think this was not a targeted attack on an individual. It was PTSD striking or something along those lines. After the shots were fired, Edge fled south and was seen loading his boat at a boat ramp, and someone called it in. The Coast Guard spotted Edge based on the description of the boat and detained him before he was arrested by police. It's believed he acted alone, and he didn't have any other significant prior criminal cases. He was well known to law enforcement, but wasn't quite as well known in the court system. He's had minor contacts with police over the years, but nothing significant. Edge was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 5 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury. The restaurant, American Fish Company, announced it would be closed indefinitely. And as mentioned, Edge legally changed his name and has filed multiple civil lawsuits within the past couple years, including some against law enforcement. He claimed to be a combat veteran who was suffering from PTSD. Very sad scenes. I wonder if this was a case of PTSD where he had some flashbacks and did terrible, evil things. We don't know the exact motive. We know it was premeditated, but I'm curious why someone would, even with PTSD, would get on a boat. I believe he was a Marine, but why would you shoot at a bar?
Yeah, I've seen rumors that he was targeting a specific person, but then, like you said, there's not really any evidence on that. And then with his PTSD, the whole thing just stinks of mental disability. We keep going back to that with every single one of these shootings that we talk about. It's always somebody that's just not quite all there in the head, or they need help. So And then, we're left with this situation again.
Yeah, clearly needs help. And if he was targeting someone specific, how would you know where in the bar they would be? It just seems like mental break is probably the most common or the most likely thing that caused this. On the mental health subject, we need to stop making excuses. Mental health is not a reason to commit horrific crimes. If you are mentally ill, you need help or you should be locked up.
Yeah. Well, let's move over into the Michigan church shooting. And kind of go over that one real quick. I know that one, kind of similar situation. Former military guy drives his truck into a Mormon church, gets out, starts firing rounds at people, and then starts setting the building on fire.
Yes, the part I'm curious about is how did he light the building on fire? I know they said he had improvised explosive devices. Is that what he used to light the building ablaze?
I'm pretty sure I saw something that said that he had gas cans and he was pouring gasoline and then lighting it.
Wow. Yeah, I saw the father of the Michigan church shooter, Thomas Jacob Sanford, said his family is devastated in the wake of his son's rampage and that they had no answer for why the Marine and married father would do something so evil. The elder Sanford described his son as a loving father and husband. This may be a similar case to the North Carolina one, although it sounds like there may have been some past relationships that came up. Sanford's father said he was under fire at one point during a deployment in Iraq, but most of the time he was fine. The only thing he really knew for sure was that his son committed this horrific crime, and he doesn't know why. 4 people killed in this mass shooting, 8 others wounded. There were also 3 people who got smoke inhalation and had to go to the hospital. All church members who were present when the attack took place have been accounted for. Investigators don't know a motive, but I wonder if this was another PTSD break.
I think I saw something as well about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something about him not liking the Mormon church. Did you see anything about that?
Yes. There was a individual by the name of Chris Johns who was running for a seat on city council, and he said he met him once while he was out canvassing, and it was a normal conversation for about 20 minutes until the Mormon church came up and he started describing Mormons as the Antichrist and expressing strong hatred towards that religious group. It makes me wonder if he had a relationship with somebody in the past that kind of burned him. It's interesting to me that Mormon individuals aren't generally seen as crazy. I went to high school with quite a few of them. They were perfectly normal people. They went to church every morning, came to school, and were just normal kids. Was friends with quite a few of them. They were always kind.
I don't know exactly what this guy's motive was, but I mean, either way, it sounds like he was battling with some kind of demons. Either way, I mean, it's really sad when, this kind of thing happens, especially when there's children involved. And in a place like a church, that's just adding salt to the wound.
On the mental health side of it, and having a family, Mike, you have children and a wife. Is there anything on earth that could get you to go shoot up a church like that?
No, not even close. And the saddest part, too, and I think the part that kind of rattles me the most, is that it's not just a church. If you think about it, if you're just sitting somewhere, you're with your family, and you're just, doing whatever you're doing, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and opens fire, as a father, that has got to be such a helpless feeling to not be able to do anything to protect anyone. And it's something where the guy just comes in out of nowhere. You don't even have a chance to react when he jumps out of the car or the truck or whatever and just starts shooting people.
Well, yeah, and for the shooter's perspective, what is he ever going to do for his kids ever again?
But yeah, his life as he knew it is over.
My question for you is, do you think this was political violence, or was this just hatred for a religious community?
In my opinion, this had nothing to do with politics. I think if anything, you can say that this guy was a little bit crazy, a little bit off the deep end, and he had a vendetta against the Mormon Church. That's my opinion. But yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with politics. There was no one in that church that anybody knows that is associated with politics that we know of to this point. So
I still think the mainstream media will try and spin this as political violence. He did have a Trump Vance campaign sign on his fence, according to Google Earth's Street View.
oh yeah, they're already coming out. Oh, MAGA, MAGA, here's you guys, here's you guys, shooting up a church. But it had nothing to do with politics. This was just a deranged man who had a vendetta against the Mormon Church. We assume, we think, but at this point we're still not exactly sure. And we may never know since, the guy's gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Trump sign and all of that is irrelevant. Friends said he didn't really share any deeply held political beliefs. I don't see this as political violence. Religious violence, yes.
Yeah. And regardless of his political affiliation or anybody else's, it's really sad. We don't, like I said before, we don't want to see anybody get hurt, especially children.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of the victims of these shootings. I would love to never have to talk about something like this again.
Yep, agreed. All right. Unfortunately, let's move on to our next topic. It is also about a shooting. I want to get into the Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. I've been seeing a lot of stuff online of, all kinds of different information. I'm sure everybody's been watching a lot of Candace Owens lately and everything that she's been having to say. But I want to start with the videos. I don't know if you've seen. There's videos going around of people saying that the shot came from Charlie's right side. That there was a stairwell in like a building and somebody saw a flash come from up there. Have you seen any of these videos about that?
They're saying from Charlie's right side?
Yeah, his right side.
His right.
Correct.
I've seen a couple things, but from everything I've seen, I don't know that I question the original narrative that the shooter was on the roof. We know from videos that somebody was on the roof and right after the shot was taken ran away.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into the other things that I've been seeing too, is that Tyler Robinson is not the shooter and that he was just the fall guy. I don't know if you saw his roommate, his boyfriend, whatever, is now on the run. I don't know if it's true or not, but they're saying that they can't find him. Neighbors have said that his mail is piling up and that they haven't seen him in a while. And that's where all of those texts came from, was the roommate was the actual shooter and that Tyler was trying to absolve him of it by saying that he did it in the case that maybe he can go to court and prove his innocence. They also, another interesting thing I saw from somewhere online is that the FBI said that they found a 30-06. They did not say that was the murder weapon. There was a distinction there that I think everybody immediately goes, oh, they found a 30-06, that's the murder weapon. But they did not actually say that was the murder weapon. They just found it.
I heard 308, not 30-06.
So I think that's kind of where the narrative gets blurry. But I also saw, they're saying that the shot came from, or it could have possibly come from behind him. And then, I'm sure everybody saw all the videos about people saying that the two security guys that work for him were like doing baseball signals and stuff. And then I saw another ridiculous thing that the guy that was behind Charlie to his right had a remote detonator, and it was the mic pack that he hit a button and hit Charlie's mic pack, and that exploded and like went up into his neck. But there's so many things rooting around. I don't buy any of them. I will say the only thing that has me questioning is the entry and exit wound stuff. But if a 30-06 was not actually the murder weapon, if that's not actually what killed him, that might give us a little more insight into the entry and exit wound and why there was no exit wound. me personally, there is no chance that he got hit with a 30-06 and that bullet stopped in his neck. There's just no way. And I mean, I do buy that wound on his neck was the entry wound. I believe that 100%. But if it was a 30-06, there's no way it didn't come out.
I haven't seen any pictures, but like I said, I heard it was a 308. Even a 308 would go through. Unless it hit the spinal column, it might stop. But if it did hit the spinal column, it would still be in the body. They would easily be able to recover it.
Well, they said that his doctor did say that they found the bullet just beneath the skin and that his neck stopped the bullet, which I don't know.
It's possible.
So, I mean, but yeah, the whole thing is crazy. And then there was the picture that was taken of him at the Dairy Queen, like 15 minutes away from the campus. There's just all kinds of things. What shakes me up is, like I said, the whole narrative that maybe the roommate was the actual shooter and that Tyler was just taking the fall and he jumped off the roof. And if you watch that grainy video, and I know it's a grainy video, so it's really hard to tell, but I just don't buy that he had time to break down that gun and stuff it into a book bag and then run off with it. And then when they found the 30-06 in the woods, it was not disassembled. Why would he take it apart, hide it in the woods, and put it back together?
I don't think he did disassemble it. When he walked to the event, he was walking with a limp. Most believe he had the gun stuffed down his pants. That's why he couldn't bend at the knee.
Yeah, but my thing is when he's leaving the roof, when you see him walk across the roof and then he jumps down off the building, he literally climbs over the edge and he's holding on to the top of the roof with just his hands, and then he lets go, lands on his feet, and then walks away. And he had a book bag on his back. There's no way that he had that gun stuffed into his pants when he jumped off that roof. There's no way he could have landed and bent his knees like that when he hit the ground from that high up.
I would imagine he had a strap and he had it over his shoulder behind him. That would be the easiest way to get down.
Yeah, and that's the only thing is that you can't, I've seen the video, you can't really tell, like there's just no way to know for sure, but in my opinion, like I have questions, but in my opinion, I think that Tyler Robinson was the shooter. He shot him from the front. You can see clear as day from the slow motion video that I've seen way too many times now that it's disturbing. Human beings were not meant to see stuff like that. But when Charlie gets hit, his shoulders come forward and his chest goes backwards, just like you would expect. And then from all the video, when he gets hit, you can't fake all the people in the crowd turning around and looking in the same direction. They all look in what they think is the direction of the shot. And every single one of them look directly in front of Charlie, out behind him to that building that's behind him. So I don't think there's any... The whole thing with Israel and stuff too, like just just stop. It wasn't Israel. I think they have the guy. I think there's a lot of information that they're not telling us because they have to keep some of this stuff under wraps for the trial and stuff like that. And I think it's just all these internet detectives that are out here are just looking for any little thing that they can.
Well, Israel and Charlie Kirk had a good relationship. Charlie was one of Israel's fiercest defenders. So no chance Israel had anything to do with this. On the shooter and his accomplice, his roommate / boyfriend, whichever it is, I do believe the messages that said he did it were his. Some of his friends in the Discord chats and stuff like that he was in would all be smart enough to co-op because they could be implicated here. They could get charged with crimes if they knew this was coming. Some of this may just be his friends covering up their own backsides.
Yeah, and I think that his roommate knew about the plan. I think that is my honest opinion. I do believe that Tyler Robinson was the shooter. He shot him from that roof. He got shot in the front. But I think that his roommate knew the entire time that this was his plan. And I think those text messages were scripted in order for Tyler to try to help his roommate not get in trouble.
Yeah, I haven't heard that the roommate's on the run, but if the roommate is, I think it's a safe assumption that they had some knowledge this was going to happen.
Yeah. But let's lead out of the sad songs for a while. In the wake of all of this, just to mention quickly, Turning Point USA has received more than 120,000 new chapter requests, which I think is amazing. That's awesome. It just really goes to show the impact that Charlie made in the short amount of time that he had. But moving on from the new chapter request, that kind of leads us into Turning Point USA returning. They were back in Utah. Matt, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Turning Point USA, going back to Utah. This time, Utah State University on Tuesday, September 30th. As we are recording this, the news is on in the background for us as we sit here and talk about this, and it flashed up that there was a bomb threat during the event. Bomb squads were deployed and detonated a suspicious package, but this university states that they don't believe this was an intentional threat. It's a wild story. That's a coincidence if I've ever seen one moment. I don't know how you would look at that.
Yeah, I don't know how we can see a bomb threat and then the bomb squad shows up and detonates said bomb, and then the university says that we don't think it's related to the event, the Turning Point USA event. What do you mean it's not related?
Yeah, and that was not a small explosion. That would cause serious bodily harm if somebody was near that.
Yeah, and they found it right outside the building where the event was going to be held. So I don't know if anybody else out there knows this, but 2 + 2 does still equal 4.
Yes, sad times we're living in. But in the wake of Charlie Kirk's passing, Turning Point's new founder, Erica Kirk, has decided she's going to take up the mantle and continue Charlie's legacy. And a panel of like-minded conservatives were going to speak at Utah State University tonight. Utah's own governor, Spencer Cox, is included. I would hope, while honoring Charlie's legacy, they bring up the fact that we must be able to have discussions and end the discussion with a reasonable agreement and still see the other side as human. When you look at the other side and don't see them as human, it's far easier to commit acts of violence.
Yeah, exactly. This whole thing has gotten out of hand, and we need to find a way to reel it back in.
Yes, and I think moving these events indoors in a lot of cases, like they did at Utah State, is a good idea. Security is easier when you're in an enclosed space. We saw that with Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania during the campaign, and unfortunately we saw it again with Charlie. Is it sad that for normal people like Charlie to go and speak to college students who are supposed to be getting an education and learning how to think critically, that some guy who's a conservative who just wants to have a conversation with people and hear their thoughts couldn't do that in an open forum just out on campus, that he really needs an entire building just to be safe?
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing is sad. I am happy about them moving it indoors to prevent this from happening and make security a little bit easier. But yeah, the whole thing it's dumb. But I want to kind of get into a little bit about the memorial service too. It's been a little while since it happened, but I just wanted to mention, I watched, I'd say about 30 minutes of it. And the 30 minutes that I did see, I was watching it on Facebook Live, and the comments section on this live stream were out of control. There was a lot of people saying stuff like, I hope the whole building burns down, just hateful stuff. And I did like the response that I saw from a lot of people. A lot of people were like, oh, hey, we're praying for you, or, things like that. But the hate in the comments was crazy. I don't understand how anybody could show up to a live stream for memorial service and just spew that hate. And to me, it's like, what if it was your family member and you're at their funeral service and some random guy just walks in and goes, hey, I hope the whole building burns down and you all die. no matter what your opinion was about anything, the whole thing it's crazy. It was a beautiful event. A lot of people got up and spoke and told stories about Charlie, and I think a lot of people were there got, a little bit of closure. The good thing that I did like to see, as always, is Donald Trump and Elon Musk sitting next to each other and appearing to make up.
Yes, great to see. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I like to watch rockets launch, but what is way cooler is watching the pencil come back down and land. The 12-story pencil coming back down to land is the best part, and we don't know exactly what was said, but apparently it was quite nice and quite cordial. Supposedly Trump told Elon he missed having him around. I would hope that's the case. That I've always liked Elon. It didn't end well. They both said some pretty nasty things and threatened some nasty things towards each other. Elon saying he was going to start his own political party. If he did, I would entertain it and I would consider voting for him. But I fear he would have just been another irrelevant party and nobody would have voted for it. He'd have got 1 or 2% of the vote and just taken that 1 or 2% from the Republican side.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Anytime you introduce a third option, you're just taking away votes from somebody who, may need it, and it's just never going to work out. We're a two-party country, unfortunately, sometimes.
And with his resources and his ideas, he could drive change in the Republican Party without question.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it to him. He is a smart guy.
Yes, he is. He launched rockets and made it affordable. That was something even the governments of superpowers didn't think was possible. And he made it possible with his own money.
All right, so to move on to our last thing here, we just wanted to sprinkle in as a little fun time here. So Monday night, the Packers and Cowboys played Monday Night Football. That was a long 4.5 hours for it to end in a tie. But we did learn who the Super Bowl halftime show is going to be this year. It is going to be Bad Bunny.
Yeah, I just recently found out he doesn't have a single song in English.
Yeah, that is true.
How is that going to go? So the whole show is going to be in Spanish, so I just need to have my finger on the mute button ready to go?
Either that or you're going to have Google Translate open on your phone. And that's that new iPhone feature where you can put the headphones in and it'll automatically translate while they're speaking. You could do that.
What I find funny, though, is Bad Bunny's 2026 World Tour is going on next year, and he didn't put any shows in the U.S. because he was afraid that when he was performing in the U.S., immigration would be outside rounding up his fans and deporting them. But now he's going to do the Super Bowl halftime show?
Yep. What's crazy to me is this is the Super Bowl. This is American football. Why are we having someone perform who doesn't sing in English? Isn't the NFL all about its reach and how many people they can get to watch? Isn't that the whole point of sport and entertainment? The more people that watch, the more money that you make.
This makes me think they're looking outside the U.S. They see a larger growth potential outside of America. Inside the NFL, they probably think they've hit close to the market cap in the U.S. The Super Bowl in the U.S. does enormous ratings. Nothing comes close to it. They may look at that and say, that is the max we're going to get in America, so let's look to places like the U.K., Germany, Brazil. That's where I think they're going with this. Bad Bunny will draw eyes in certain parts of the world, especially the Latin American world. People in Brazil will watch Bad Bunny. Puerto Rico will watch Bad Bunny. I believe that's where he's from. This just makes me think they're not overly concerned with the Americans liking the halftime show. If you could use Bad Bunny to get people to watch the game, they may become fans of the sport.
Yeah, true.
When is the last time we had a good halftime show?
I would argue that the halftime show with Snoop and Eminem and Dr. Dre and all them, I really enjoyed that halftime show. I know a lot of people didn't, but that's kind of the music that I grew up listening to. So I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say even that's a good one. I would probably argue you have to go back to Maroon 5 or Justin Timberlake in 2018 or 2019.
The Dr. Dre one was just nostalgic. For anyone that was born in the 80s or 90s, that was the perfect halftime show.
You were always more of a fan of rap than I was.
Yeah. That's it for this episode of the Republic Brothers podcast. Here's the big takeaway. Pete Hegseth is getting our military back to its high standards. Government shutdown is looming. The tragedy of the mass shootings in North Carolina and Michigan, and all the Charlie Kirk conspiracies. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the Republic Brothers podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Leave us a rating and share this episode with a friend. Don't miss next week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.